You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Yet again, another hour. And as promised, y'all, we are still here for you. And we are joined by Miss Claudette Grant. She is, providing the outreach for the Cancer Center here at UVA, the Emily Curry Cancer Center, particularly right now for March, which is National Colorectal Cancer Month. And Miss Grant, thank you for joining us today. Good afternoon to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here with you all. So glad to talk about colorectal cancer. So I'm going to start by saying that portions of this discussion might not be the prettiest topic to discuss because we're talking about the colon and we're talking about the rectum, which are parts of the digestive system.
Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
And, March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And even though the month is almost over, this is a really important message that we want to get out to the community. So I'm hoping that we can be helpful for folks in the community.
Yeah, likewise. And again, thank you for joining us. I'm thinking, because we have, two sisters with us, Miss Claudette, Miss Max, right? And then you have three guys. And fact of the matter is, women's health and men's health, are approached two different ways. And this is something in particular that's not going to be comfortable, fellas, but it's something that I think we can agree that needs to be addressed when it comes to our health. How did you put it earlier, Giles? Like when you were talking about, yes, you, Giles. Like when you were talking about, women's health.
Why all the men looking at each other like they have three eyes?
No, Max, have you ever seen them freeze up like this before?
Yeah, because pretty soon.
I'm only going to answer this if you do the roll call on the exam again, on the first exam again, okay? Those are my
Hey, Giles, the reason we froze up is because we're going to get to the point of how they do the test. So that's why I'm on high alert right now.
No, but Giles, the way that you phrased it earlier about, on how young women are made to take care of their health and, like to have exams, that's like just part of growing up and that's part of being a woman. Whereas men somehow, generation after generation keep shying away from much needed tests. And you said it more eloquently, but that's what I was referring to.
Well, I just mainly was like men always want to be so tough and act like they are so tough, and yet they're so afraid of the doctor.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we have some fragility.
Had to do all this crazy stuff with doctors throughout their whole lives. I mean, culminating in childbirth, of course. But we just get off, and if you feel good, you just put it off. And if you are a athletic and composed person who feels like they take good care of themselves, you just assume that the stuff inside is going along with it. And I think we all know at this point that with cancer, don't bet on that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Go ahead. I was gonna kick it to Claudette.
Miss Claudette, I still want to know why y'all ain't figured out no other way to give the test. Why? Why?
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Why we got to line up like a caboose to do the test, Miss Claudette? You know what I'm saying? Why you can't take my blood pressure and then tell if my colon is good? You know what I'm saying?
Help him, Miss
Well,
Claudette.
I will help you. So there are different types of tests. We're very familiar with the colonoscopy, which takes a couple days of, you've got to do your day of preparation, which is not fun. Once you drink all of this liquid, then you're going to spend the rest of your day in the bathroom, on the toilet. So that's not fun, but and then the next day you would get a colonoscopy, which you have to be sedated. But, a few hours of discomfort, if you can save your life, if you can spend more time with your loved one and your family members, it's worth it.
Yeah.
But there are other types of screening methods, not just a colonoscopy. There is something called, you may be familiar with it, haven't heard of it, called the FIT, which is fecal-based testing, and it's an at-home test.
Fecal taste.
Testing.
No, tests.
Oh, I thought you said fecal
corrected
test.
it,
And
No.
now you didn't got worse.
Stay focused, Race.
No, test.
What in the world?
And
Miss Claudette?
sometimes you might find blood in your stool, which could be a sign of polyps or cancer. And you can take this test at home. You basically use the tool to collect a sample of your stool, and you store it in a collection container that comes with the test kit. And the container is then returned to your healthcare professional, either by mail or in person. And then they can tell you some of the results. Now, the good thing is they can say, yeah, you're good. But if they say, oh, no, we think you need we see something, then you will have to come back and get a colonoscopy. But, there are options.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be that you have to have a colonoscopy, but you're going to, what we always recommend is that you check with your healthcare provider.
Okay.
And they're going to know and tell you what is the best test for you. Because not everything is requires you to be sedated. Yeah.
And I was going to ask exactly that on the importance of the PCP versus the normal routine, sort of the generalized steps, that you all give for how to get screened, how to schedule it and when to schedule it. So can you touch on that, particularly for our community, right? Our people, because it varies based on your ethnicity, right? On how early you should get screened. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So screening is now recommended. It used to be that it was at age 50. But now it's recommended that at age 45 that you get screened. And that is because we are seeing an increase in younger people between the ages of 20 to 39 who are getting colorectal cancer. And so it is important to work with your healthcare provider, your PCP, because you might have a family history, which actually means that you might need to be screened earlier than the age of 45. And so it just depends on your family history. It depends on your own just health history, when you might need to get tested. But it is important to work with your healthcare provider to help guide you.
Yeah, that history is important. Razor been doing the PSAs too. Nice PSA, by the way, Razor, for the awareness month, talking about Chetwick.
Oh, Chetwick, yeah.
Like that was a big one, Miss Claudette, Chadwick Boseman passed away, the actor who portrayed Black Panther, and amongst other great work, of course. But
yes.
But yeah, I think that was a big hit, right? To see somebody in their prime, someone who you thought was healthy, somebody that didn't complain, and for them to be gone like that, I think that
somebody
made a
you
lot
feel
of people
like you had a
notice.
connection with.
A connection, yeah, yeah. So I think that made a lot of Black men take notice.
Yes. And he unfortunately died at the age of 43. So, that's something for us to think about. But yes, his death, I think, really brought the importance of screening to the forefront. He is not the only famous person who has had colorectal cancer and died. The baseball player Darryl Strawberry, he died of colorectal cancer. People like Ronald Reagan had colorectal cancer. He didn't die of it, but he had it, as well as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She also had colorectal cancer, but didn't die of that. But, so there are a lot of folks who have had it that we need to be aware of. Yeah.
Now, speaking of that, what is our demographic like when it comes to Black folks and men? Is it very? You don't have to have the exact number, but is that another one of those wide-ranging disparities of Black people and Black men in regards of who gets it, who's dying from it?
So it's men and women are equally can get colorectal cancer. The statistics in the African American community are really daunting. So basically, members of the Black community are 20% more likely to get the cancer and 40% more likely to die from it. And we are African Americans. We are the highest, we have the highest incidence of getting and dying of any ethnic group from colorectal cancer.
Yeah. Why is that though? Like because I think about that a lot. And like, we have a history, black folk in this country, of, with the healthcare system, for better or for worse, there's been, different things that has swayed our trust or lack thereof. But I think about that, man. I'm like, are we just foreign to the diets here, to the, to the atmosphere?
See, that's what
there has to be something.
That's what I thought, Charles, when they gave me the commercial to do, right? And then as I read the commercial, like sometimes something hits you differently. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at the numbers, 20% men, 40% of black people that get it more likely to die. So I was like, man. So then you start to think about how the diets that we were accustomed to that other people weren't. Like there were so many things that I felt African Americans did with their food that led to our demise. Over salting. Put too much sugar in every single thing that we eat. Processed food because it's cheap. We can get it out of for lack of a better word, the dollar stores.
Oh Lord!
I said dollar stores. I didn't say nothing in particular, but you go in and you buying stuff there that once it goes in the freezer, you have something that is meant to preserve. You put it in your body. Your body's trying to break down something that was never meant to be broken down. So then then you receive all your nutrients from your intestines. Well, your intestines is connected to your colon. So then you have all this fecal matter sitting there brewing. Yeah. And it's just like when you take like grass cuttings and everything else and you stick it in that little thing and let it ferment.
Yeah, it does, right? Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And decays and everything else. Well, that's what you got sitting inside you. Yeah. So
in any foreign substance, like I think my opinion and others have seen it, but like any foreign substance, like a lot of the medication that we take nowadays,
and not drinking enough water when we take them,
it's artificial. Body can't process it. But Giles, I think you had something to chime in with, or did we cover it?
I didn't realize you guys were pre-med, so I just kind of got lost in a whole different.
Giles, I'm gonna behave. I was gonna say something.
I agree with what you were saying. So I was listening. I was just gonna ask. There was something that Ms. Grant said earlier about how important the relationship with your primary care provider is, and it kind of clicked to me like something clicked for you, Razor, where I was like, I don't know that men have a relationship with their primary care provider.
My primary care was the emergency room. My wife could tell you that. If I had to go to the doctor, I didn't have a primary care. My kids do. She does. Yeah. But if something was wrong, I ran to the emergency room.
Keyword was.
Oh, was. I got all kind of appointments. I don't play now. Now, I ain't got up to the point for the colorectal. I'm working my way up them steps. You know what I'm saying? But all jokes aside, though, when it comes to these type of things, man, one of the big disparities for black men was our manhood. You know what I'm saying? So you feel like, and I'm just being kind of frank because that's who I am.
Let's be real.
You got somebody placing their finger up your rectum to do a test in a society where, regardless of what your sexual preference is, it just feels like somebody is demeaning you. So then when somebody starts to learn about the things that were done in slavery and you read about buck breaking and all these other type things, that goes, it's a mental psyche. Like, am I going to let this man do this to me to save my life? So now your enemy is yourself, your own perception. You know what I'm saying? Because then if he don't find nothing, you like, I just sit up and let this man violate me and he ain't even find nothing. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but I know
but
that's how my circle thought, and then when you get older, when the old men would talk, they'd be like, yeah, let me go get this exam. You knew exactly what they was talking about. But because healthcare has been since we were done like animals for so long in the healthcare field, to have that trust is a hard thing, even to today, even if you don't have a problem with getting the colorectal exam, just the hope that the doctor is not experimenting on you and just trying new things or putting you in a cookie cutter scenario is horrifying to me.
Yeah. And Mr. Grant, is there an approach that you all have for that, for when you are talking to a man in particular, but, and Ms. Max, please chime in. But, of course, the guys have these questions. But, like, is there a certain method or like routine that you have to try to convince people? Because you're telling them it's important, but and they know it's important, but they're uncomfortable. They're so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's totally understandable. I mean, one of the things that we talk about is, we talk about some of those issues and things that make people feel uncomfortable. There's so many different reasons why people don't get screened, don't get tested, like you're talking about, cultural, things that we're used to or not, don't feel comfortable about. Maybe we don't live near a place where we have a clinic. Maybe we don't even have a primary care doctor. And so these are things that we recognize, we understand. We have at times in our own lives had the same sort of concerns, but it's so important that we have to get over the hump. We have to get over that reluctance to talk about these things because it does affect our health. And once we get over those humps, it can save our lives. And it can really help us so that we can live longer to spend that good time that we want to have with our family and our friends. So it is about just getting over that hump of the discomfort of talking about these types of topics. It's important because it's going to save your life.
Just going to say we kind of breezed past the poor eating habits so fast. But I wanted to ask Ms. Grant, as the mama in the house, that in our particular house, I'm providing fixing the food for 5 guys. How should I be preparing the food, or can you give any recommendations as to what I should be preparing? Because I can do a Google search all day, and depending on what site you're on, they may say different things. So maybe just a little bit of guidance there.
Yeah. So, parts of prevention for things like colorectal cancer are eating a variety of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. So, eating healthy, nutrition is important, and eating healthy is a really large part of helping to prevent things like colorectal cancer. Lifestyle changes. It may be drinking alcohol in moderation, if at all. Things like if you smoke, you might want to consider stop smoking. Exercise most of the days of the week, and maintain a healthy weight. And so these are things that are going to help to prevent things like colorectal cancer. There was one thing that you all sort of brought up. We sort of touched on it. I want to kind of go back to it because you were sort of asking, how do you get colorectal cancer? And basically, doctors aren't certain what causes most colon cancers. In general, colon cancer begins when your healthy cells in your colon develop a change. So there's a change in the DNA. And one of the things about colon cancer is it typically is a slow growing cancer. So a lot of times when you get a colonoscopy, you might not have, if everything's good, you might not have to come back for 10 years. And that's because they know that it is a slow growing cancer. But, I do want to bring to your attention that there are doctors, scientists, professionals who are out there studying why is it different among African Americans versus our Caucasians, brothers and sisters. And so one of the things that I'd like you to know that's happening like right in our backyard at UVA is that there are medical professionals, they're studying this, and there's a doctor at the University of Virginia, and he recently found differences in how the colon ages in African Americans and people of European descent. Now the science is way above my head, but I think it's important for you to know that there are people out there studying and that there are some differences, it looks like, how our colon ages that may be parts of the answer to solving the issues.
Charles, you know what got me over the hump? Now, I haven't had the test yet, but I'm making jokes and stuff like this. But what got me over the hump was thinking about what people look like when they go through cancer. The slow progression of the losing weight, you know what I'm saying? Like when you actually watch somebody decline from cancer, it'll mess you up. So if you say, okay, if I get this test, and so if when y'all talk to people, if you show them and said, do you want to go through this? Shoot, pants be dropping down around knees left and right.
But another thing that I'm thinking about, Miss Grant, is just, sounds like Razor's my husband. Sounds like he's open to the idea.
No, I'm not open to it. I just said I ain't over the hump yet.
Come on, Razor. But I think about the families where that's a difficult conversation between husband and wife, and that's not something that the husband wants any parts of it, and the wife trying to, or significant other trying to convince him that this is what he needs to do, to preserve his health. So, I don't know. Sometimes just telling them that it's going to prolong your life or you'll be here for your kids isn't enough. Yeah. So that can be a very difficult conversation to maneuver,
especially in the Black community.
Yeah. And me, me being a Black male for one, and my family, men in my family having a history of not only colon cancer but also prostate cancer. Thankfully, like enough of men in my family have caught it early enough. But my grandfather did die of it, and so, I've been through it once. Because I was advised, to that it's good if you have that kind of family history to go ahead and get checked early, and then then if there's nothing there, then you can wait until the sort of the normal recommended age. But definitely if you have a history, to go early. So I did, so thankful for that. But yeah, Brother Razor, I'll be your spiritual,
no, you
comfort,
stay where you at.
I'll be your. Hey, I said spiritual. I ain't going in the room with you, but I said
COVID said 6 feet. I'm gonna need you to give me 12.
I give you 12 miles.
No, all jokes aside, though, man. This. Everybody listen to me. This is very, very important. I know we're joking because this is one of those things, man, that when you're dying from the inside out, like you can get to a point where there's nothing left to do, and now everybody is sitting there waiting to see your decline. You don't want to do that when you could have took 1 hour, 1 week, whatever, and made some adjustments. Because let's say they find something early enough, then you can do what you got to do to get healthy. Because I know, switching topics a little bit, my diabetes was horrible, and it was because like my wife, when we sat down and had the conversation, she thought I didn't care because I wasn't plucking my finger. I didn't pluck my finger because I was scared. Like just a piece of metal going in my hand, like it horrified me.
Respect.
And it got to the point where I was laying in the hospital and they drew blood 64 times and stuck my hands over 100 times. So then I got used to it and realized it wasn't that bad. Now, what if I'd have took information like what I'm hearing on the radio right now and did preventive maintenance? Been proactive instead of reactive.
That's key.
Life would have been different. I almost lost my whole family because I was afraid to pluck my finger.
Hey, learning lesson, brother. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, I know this conversation is drawing to a close, but I can't let it go without saying that I hear you raised loud and clear. It makes perfect sense. But there's so many other things that we have to get under control in the African American household so that we can focus on our health, right? Because we trying to, make money. We trying to pay bills. We trying to raise kids. We try, sometimes the other challenges of our life, whatever they're caused from, but the health can be on the back burner. I'm not dying today, then I'm not worried about it today.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, today becomes forever, and then you got a big problem. So just saying, like it's a holistic approach.
You're right. Thank you for that. I think Giles has the plug.
Well, no, I just kind of wanted to hear from Ms. Grant. Just we talked about it, I think, before we were on air. Obviously we were privy to your work organizing with Piedmont Housing Alliance and in the community. So why, how did it fit to decide that you were going to make your impact this way in education around health? And then I guess to Max's point, sometimes public health in its goody shoes, it's like almost feels like it's blaming the victim. It's like, you didn't do this, and this. That's why you're dying.
Right.
And it's like, to Max's point, it's like, yeah, because I was doing this, and this, and you weren't helping me. You know? So just curious how your motivation coming into this position.
Yeah. So my background is as an urban planner. I've been a city planner for over 20 years. And so to Max's point, I have seen how disparities really affect, really it comes down to people's health. It can be housing, the lack of housing, trying to find housing. It can be from an economic standpoint, I got to find a job. All the different issues that come with finding economic ways to help my family. It can be transportation. Maybe I don't have a car to get to the job. There's so many disparities, so many what we call social determinants that really come down to our health. You know, when you look at African Americans, we are, a lot of the health issues that we deal with is because of stress. Why are we stressed? We are often stressed because of all these, whether it's education, we're worrying about our jobs, the list goes on and on of issues that we have had to work with. And so I think for me, I've always known from, I was a housing counselor in Richmond, and I remember that it was people's health that really was stressing them out. They were paying enormous health bills that were like ongoing. They needed to find housing, but they had all these medical bills. Right. And so, it kind of comes down to I've watched all of these determinants over the years and realized that it kind of we've got to deal with all of them, yes. But you also need to take care of your health. You do have to have self-care, because if you're not here, how are you going to, what's your family going to do?
Yeah. Hey, you know what, Charles? Giles is the first white man that I've talked about with health and him not be a doctor.
Okay, look at that IMHO study building.
You know what I'm saying? Like literally, I was
let Razor talk at me, so it worked.
Right. I was sitting there thinking, like, if Giles and I switch places, how do you feel from? And we can't even. We don't want to call this white privilege that, my rectum getting older than yours faster, but in the whole scope of things, you're listening to something that really doesn't apply to you the way that it applies to me and Charles. Like,
that's fact.
I had serious health issues. Charles said, okay, because of his family history, he had to get tested early. He's only, XYZ amount of ages. But we're having this conversation with, a member of our family who's not part of our natural community that doesn't affect him the same.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So then you have to hope that the people who are doing the training and the putting the research and the money behind these things look to see value in it, because it doesn't really affect their people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they're putting money towards it, because when somebody says, man, we put $2 million towards it, you like $2 million, but it's nothing on the overall scope of them putting into something that they care about.
Yeah.
So I was just
show you care.
I look at it from that point of view. Anything.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And plug one of our, our friend, counselor, and partner, Sarad Davenport. The Determined and Still Determined series. The whole purpose of that is that all of these outcomes manifest as social determinants of health. That was the purpose of those two series, and that's what Sarad is always preaching. Social determinants, social determinants, social determinants. And I'm hearing Ms. Grant say the same thing, that if you're serious about the struggle in a way, you should be looking at the determinants and solving for them. And I think as a white man, I can say, you're right. I can also say my dad had colorectal cancer and is missing, 13 inches of his colon, and, drank coffee, ate red meat, and drank whiskey, and didn't do a lot with other fluids or fruits and vegetables his entire life, So, I watched a guy that I admire harden his colon through toughness, through repression, through bad diet, through not eating, through stress. So, we all have the same connection to the determinants, but the disproportionality of it is unfair and has to be said up front for someone to trust somebody like me talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm really glad, Ms. Grant, you're doing this work.
Yeah.
It's not been the traditional, since the 70s. Maybe this is a good segue to President Biden in the next discussion. But since the 70s, there hasn't been that much money in urban public health for this to be a thing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that, Giles. Man, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Miss Max, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I definitely want to thank Miss Grant for joining us. We appreciate you, what you do. So glad that someone who comes from the activist mindset, who comes from from being able to give your community the particular attention that they need, is in healthcare, because it gives you a different perspective of what you're dealing with and what people actually need. So thank you for that. We appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Take care, okay? And you're welcome back
Thank
Anytime.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Take care.
Take care. Talk to you
Bye.
later.
Bye.
What you think, Miss Max? It's probably a good time for a break, and we come back with a little dialogue to close out this
You know
hour.
what? Before we do that, Charles, let's talk about how we felt about the conversation after having to her, because
Can we do that after the break? Can we do that
After what?
first?
Because this is like a life and death.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then because once we take this break, the sting of it is going to subside. Just like that's human nature. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's the only reason it's not that I know that we don't need to take a break, but I guarantee you somebody knows somebody that when they use the bathroom see a little bit of blood. Or somebody knows somebody that, like Giles said, has all these factors: eating red meat, drinking coffee, drinking wine. You know what I'm saying? They have all these things that aren't really signed up to go take the test, or have never taken the test, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So if you are that person that I'm talking to, don't bite your tongue with them. Yes, they might get upset with you. Yes, they might tell you the conversation they don't want to talk about is uncomfortable. But if you love them, you got to stay on them, because you can either cry in the argument that you're having with them, or you can cry over the casket.
Amen.
The choice is yours.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Miss Max, you ready? You ready to go?
I think we're going to break.
All right, let's do it.